You watch the recent record-shattering heat waves melting Europe's historic cities, and it feels like humanity has reached its absolute limit. You think you know what hot feels like. You do not. Because the extreme weather panicking the modern world today would have been just a regular Tuesday for your ancient ancestors for 290,000 years. They lived without houses. They survived without refrigerators. No cold drink was within reach. So, how did they not die? The answer isn't one thing. It's an entire system, and what they built is still running inside your body right now. Let's start with the thing nobody talks about. But first, tell me in the comments section how your summer days are going. Is it hot where you live? The very first reason for survival is your skin. It changed everything. When ancient humans lost their thick fur, they lost their shade, they lost their protection, they lost their built-in barrier against the sun. And that massive loss forced the body to invent something much better. They became the most efficient sweating machine on Earth. Humans have between 2 and 5 million sweat glands. That is more than any other primate. It is more than almost any other mammal. A fully acclimatized human in extreme heat can dissipate up to 600 watts of thermal energy. This happens through evaporative cooling. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the heat output of 6 standard incandescent light bulbs. They are running simultaneously and continuously for hours. The great lion beside you in that heat is already at its absolute limit, but you are not. You can keep going. The lion resting under an acacia tree at midday isn't lazy. It physically cannot keep moving in that heat. Its cooling system relies on panting. It has limited sweating through pore pads. This system cannot handle sustained exertion above 40 degrees. The leopard, the hyena, and the wild dog are all the same. All of them are physiologically forced into rest during peak heat hours. Your ancestors were not forced to stop. They were the only large animal on the savanna that could remain functional. They moved when everything else had to stop, and they used that specific window. But the sweat system only works if it has something to work with. And here is what actually killed more ancient humans than any predator, any disease, or any rival group. The ultimate killer was water, or rather, the complete absence of it. In 45-degree heat with any physical activity, a human body loses a lot. It loses between 1.5 liters of fluid per hour. 2 hours without replacement and cognition begins to fail. 4 to 6 hours and you lose consciousness completely. 12 hours without water and you are dead. It is over. Finding water in a landscape that is actively trying to hide it was tough. It was not a basic skill. It was a true science passed from generation to generation. It had the same precision and seriousness as any other survival knowledge. Ancient humans read the landscape for water the way you read a map. They looked for clues. They followed the path of elephant trails. Elephants walk up to 50 kilometers per day. They do this specifically seeking water. Their routes are highly reliable over generations. Following an elephant path in the dry season was smart. It was following a map written by the most water-efficient navigator in the ecosystem. Ancient humans knew this trick. They also looked at vegetation color to find hidden water sources. In a landscape where everything is dying from heat, things change. The vegetation above underground water stays fractionally greener. It stays fractionally taller. This is a difference invisible to an untrained eye, but it is obvious to someone who has been reading this landscape since childhood. They also looked at dry riverbeds. The surface is cracked and dead, but if you dig half a meter down, things change. Look in the outer bend of a dry channel. That is where centrifugal force once deposited sediment. Water seeps into the hole. The Sand people still teach this to their children today. They have been teaching it for longer than any written record exists. And then there was the coastal option. Curtis Marion at Arizona State University has spent decades studying this. He focused on what happened during Africa's worst heat periods. His research at Pinnacle Point on the South African coast revealed something big. It changed how we understand ancient human survival. During the most extreme interglacial heat events, things got bad. Interior savanna temperatures became genuinely unsurvivable for extended periods. Because of this, ancient human populations contracted toward the coasts. Ocean breezes kept coastal temperatures 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the interior. Shellfish required no hunting. They required no running. There was no extended exertion in dangerous heat. They were easily harvestable at low tide. This was the coolest part of the day. They provided both food and hydration. Freshwater springs emerged at coastal cliff bases. This happened where fresh groundwater met the saltwater table. The heat didn't just kill individuals, it compressed the entire human population towards specific survival zones. And some researchers now believe this coastal compression was key. Thousands of humans were forced into a small strip of survivable land. This may explain our lineage. This compression may explain why all modern humans share a common ancestor. We share a surprisingly recent common ancestor. The heat nearly ended us, and in nearly ending us, it may have created us. But survival wasn't just geography, it was timing. Your ancestors operated on a strict schedule. The African heat imposed this schedule on everything that lived. It all started before dawn. The 2-hour window between first light and the heat building was critical. It was the most important window of the day. Water sources were accessed. Dew was collected from vegetation. Movement between sites happened now. Everything physically demanding happened before 11 in the morning. Then it stopped completely. It did not just slow down. It stopped from roughly 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This was a time of complete rest. This was not because ancient humans were tired. It was because movement generates body heat. In 50-degree heat, your body is already fighting itself to stay cool. Every movement you add is a problem. Shade and stillness were the entire strategy, and it worked. This 4-hour window of enforced stillness repeated every single day. It happened every summer for 290,000 years. This is almost certainly when human language deepened. It is when stories became complex. It is when social bonds were cemented. This happened not through action, but through proximity and voice. This is when the things that make us human were built. It did not happen in the dramatic moments of the hunt. It happened in the long, still midday hours. There was nothing to do but be near each other and talk. Then the heat dropped. The afternoon window finally opened. Late afternoon foraging began. A second water collection occurred. This is the same crepuscular rhythm that still shows up today. It shows up in modern research on Hadza and San Bushman activity patterns. They have 2 active windows. They have 1 long, enforced rest. The heat wrote the schedule. The humans adapted to it so completely that the schedule became biological. Food in summer was different. It was different from food in any other season of the year. Persistence hunting was a core technique. It made humans apex predators, but it became dangerous in peak heat. Running for hours in 45-degree temperatures is risky. It risks killing the hunter before the prey is caught. So, ancient humans shifted their strategy. They followed vultures to kills made by other predators. They drove those predators off the meat. Scavenging required less sustained exertion. They harvested shellfish on coastlines. They dug deep for tubers. These are underground storage organs of plants. They remain full of moisture even when every surface plant is dead. A Juhonsi woman can read the dried stem of a surface plant easily. She can locate a tuber full of liquid 2 feet underground. From above the ground you see a dead stem. From inside the knowledge you see water. They also used ostrich eggs. 1 egg holds approximately 1 liter of liquid. The San people documented using them as water containers. They filled them at water sources. Then they buried them along known travel routes. This allowed retrieval during dry season crossings. It was an ancient UPS system. It was refrigerated by underground soil temperature, and through all of it, the system worked. The timing, The water reading, the coastal retreats, and the midday stillness kept them alive. Through it all, the body itself was doing something amazing. It did something modern humans have almost entirely lost. It achieved full acclimatization. Your ancestors grew up in this heat. Their bodies learnt it the way yours learned to walk. They learned through years of exposure. This exposure rewired their biology permanently. Increased plasma volume allowed more blood to reach the skin surface for cooling. They experienced earlier sweat onset. The body began cooling before temperatures reached dangerous levels rather than after. They had a lower sodium concentration in their sweat. This meant the body retained more electrolytes during fluid loss. You have the exact same body today. You just never taught it how to adapt. You have the hardware. The 2 to 5 million sweat glands are still there. The cooling capacity of 600 watts is still there. Every piece of the system your ancestors built is still inside you. It is waiting. What is missing is the knowledge. The summer system that kept your ancestors alive for 290,000 years was never written down. It didn't need to be. It lived in the hands, the eyes, and the decisions of people who had no alternative. They had to get it right. The heat came every single year, and every year the people who knew the system survived it. You are here today because of them. Every single one of your ancestors passed the test. They conquered the heat. Amplified adaptation, the fire of human origins. Let us look deeper into the mechanisms of this ancient survival. The burning sun did not just test human limits, it forged them. The African savanna was a crucible of radiation. To survive, the human body had to completely restructure its internal thermostat. This was a radical evolutionary gamble. No other mammal chose to discard its primary defense against the sun. Fur protects skin from direct heat. By shedding fur, humans exposed bare skin to direct ultraviolet radiation. This created a new vulnerability, but it unlocked a powerful mechanism. The human body multiplied its eccrine sweat glands exponentially. These glands produce a watery secretion. It is distinct from the oily sweat of other animals. When this water evaporates, it absorbs latent heat from the skin. It cools the blood beneath. This blood then circulates back to the core. It lowers internal temperature. This process is highly effective. It turns the entire human body surface into a massive radiator. A human could walk, jog, and tracking prey while actively dumping heat. A fur-covered animal cannot do this. The animal traps its own metabolic heat inside its insulated jacket. The animal cooks from the inside out. This evolutionary trade-off changed the dynamics of predation. Humans could now hunt by day. They became diurnal predators in a world ruled by nocturnal carnivores. The midday savanna was suddenly open for business, but this strategy demanded an enormous physiological price. The price was an absolute, non-negotiable dependency on water. The human radiator requires constant fluid input to maintain blood volume. Without fluid, the system collapses rapidly. As dehydration sets in, blood volume drops. The heart must beat faster to pump the remaining fluid. The body faces a terrible choice. It can send blood to the skin to cool down, or send blood to vital organs to stay alive. If it chooses the organs, skin temperature spikes, core temperature skyrockets, heat stroke sets in. This is why water procurement became the primary cognitive driver for early humans. It wasn't just about finding a water hole. It was about mapping an invisible network of hydration across thousands of square kilometers. This requirement accelerated brain development. Humans had to remember spatial data over years. They had to predict where water would be based on abstract environmental signs. They observed the flight paths of birds at dusk. Certain species of birds fly directly toward water at sunset. They noted the presence of specific insects. Honeybees, for example, rarely nest far from a permanent water source. They recognized the subtle texture changes in soil. Damp soil holds heat differently than bone-dry sand. It feels cooler to the touch even under a baking sun. This sensory attunement was a matter of life or death. Every child born into the group learned these markers. They learned them through immersion and storytelling. The landscape became an open textbook. A dry landscape was full of hidden signals. The ability to decode these signals separated the survivors from the dead. It was an intellectual achievement of the highest order. Consider the complexity of using ostrich eggshells for water storage. This requires forward planning. It requires technological innovation. You must harvest the egg without destroying the shell. You must create a small, precise opening to extract the contents. Then you must sanitize the interior. You must transport it to a water source, fill it and seal it with wax or clay. Finally, you must bury it at a recognizable landmark. You must remember that location months later during a drought. This is not instinct. This is working memory, future planning, and engineering combined. It is the foundation of human culture. The heat did not make us weak. It forced us to become highly intelligent, hyper-cooperative, and technologically dependent creatures. The coastal compression events added another layer of complexity. When the interior of the continent dried out, populations were squeezed together, isolation dropped, interaction rose. This forced cooperation among groups that might otherwise avoid each other. It required new social rules. It demanded better communication systems to manage conflict over limited coastal resources. This density of population is a classic catalyst for cultural acceleration. When more minds interact, ideas replicate faster, tools improve, language expands. The coast became a pressure cooker for human behavior. We developed richer symbolic lives. We painted walls. We wore shells as ornaments. We defined tribal identities. The climate crisis of the past drove our psychological evolution forward. The midday rest period was a crucible for this social evolution. When the sun is at its zenith, physical work is fatal. You must sit still in the shade. You must minimize movement. This creates a unique environmental condition. You have a group of highly intelligent primates trapped together for 4 hours every day with absolutely nothing to do. They cannot hunt, they cannot gather, they can only interact. This enforced leisure time is rare in nature. Most animals spend all waking hours foraging or avoiding predators. Humans were given a daily 4-hour window of total safety and stillness. This is where language flourished. It shifted from simple warning cries to complex symbolic communication. We began to discuss the past. We planned for the future. We told stories about why the sun is hot. We explained where the water goes. We built myths. We established kinship systems. The heat created the free time necessary to build human culture. Our capacity for deep relationships was nurtured in the shade of ancient trees. We learnt to bond through language rather than physical grooming alone. When the modern world faces heat, we hide in air-conditioned rooms. We view the sun as an enemy to be avoided. We treat it as an external threat to our comfort. But our biology tells a different story. Our bodies are built for this. We are the children of the sun. We are designed to sweat, to endure, and to navigate the most challenging thermal landscapes on Earth. The modern sedentary lifestyle has dulled these ancient systems. We spend our lives in climate-controlled boxes. Our sweat glands are underutilized. Our blood vessels have forgotten how to dilate fully for heat dissipation. Our plasma volume remains low. We experience heat as a profound shock because our bodies have been coddled by technology. The hardware is dormant, but it remains fully intact. If you expose your body to heat gradually, the old programming wakes up. Within weeks, your plasma volume increases. Your heart rate lowers for a given temperature. You begin to sweat sooner and more copiously. Your sweat becomes less salty as your kidneys conserve precious sodium. The ancient system, built over 290,000 years, reclaims its power. The body remembers what it is. This adaptation is not just physical, it is psychological. Understanding that your ancestors survived far worse provides a sense of perspective. They did not have cooling centers. They did not have emergency services. They had each other. They had their collective knowledge. They had an unshakable understanding of the natural world. They turned a deadly environment into a home. The story of human origin is a story of climate resilience. We did not evolve in a stable paradise. We evolved in a world of wild climate swings and brutal heat waves. Every challenge the environment threw at us became a stepping stone for a new adaptation. The heat forced us to lose our fur, expand our brains, develop our language, and unite as a species. As we look toward a future with rising global temperatures, we should remember this legacy. The challenges ahead are significant. They require global cooperation and technological innovation, but we are not a fragile species unsuited for a warm planet. We are the ultimate climate survivors. The capacity to endure is written in our DNA. It is expressed in our sweat. It is proven by our very existence today. Every breath you take in a hot summer room connects you back to that ancient line. You are the product of 1,000 generations who sat through the midday heat. They planned the next move. They kept each other alive. The heat did not destroy them. It made them human. And that human spirit is still inside you right now.